Welcome to LawNext PR, the podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and in each sponsored episode of LawNext PR, I interview a legal tech company about its just released news or latest developments. Today we're talking about Trellis AI, a new set of generative AI tools from the legal technology company Trellis, designed to simplify litigation tasks. Joining me to discuss the new feature is Nicole Clark, the founder and CEO of Trellis. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bob. Great to be here.
Always good to see you. Before we get into talking about Trellis AI, which you recently launched, why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of Trellis and what you do?
Absolutely. So Trellis is a state trial court research, analytics, and AI platform. And what I mean by that is for anyone who has worked at the trial court level, ever been in state court, they know that the state trial court system is massively fragmented and opaque system. And what we do is we go in county by county, we aggregate the state trial court data, we structure it, normalize it, make it searchable for really a single source of truth for the United States trial court system. And then, of course, we're able to then power analytics like judge analytics, law firm analytics, and now AI on top of that.
You were yourself a litigator before starting this company, so you know the pain a lot of lawyers felt, right?
I know it well. I was an employment litigator, which means I was in state trial court all the time. And I simply couldn't believe that a product like Trellis didn't exist yet. How did we have, such a great ability to look into Court of Appeals and to look into Supreme Court, but yet in the court system where every case starts, trial court, we just had a black box.
So you've just recently launched Trellis AI, which is a really kind of a whole new set of features and functionality on top of what you'd already built. So why don't you tell us about Trellis AI on a high level, and then we can dig into it a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, with the data that we have this just absolutely incredible data set at a massive scale in a way that it just is unmatched. And because we have that, we have just hundreds of millions of motions and briefs and really what is effectively attorney work product. And we're able to use that to help litigators. We really work the product is for trial court litigators. And we're able to help them do litigation tasks that they would otherwise be doing more manually. And we're able to do that because we have this incredible data set of which to train and to use as examples.
So can you talk a little bit more about that data set, just in terms of how extensive it is and how it perhaps is different from what other companies out there in the market might have?
Absolutely. So attorneys have traditionally used really Court of Appeals research, which of course makes sense. Court of Appeals is binding on the lower courts, and the lower courts are supposed to listen. The truth of the matter is, at the trial court level, judges really do anything. And anyone who has practiced in state trial court knows quite how unpredictable that court system is. And part of its unpredictability is the impossibility of trying to understand what happens in that court system. And so at this point, we have over 2,600 counties. Again, every county is a fragmented, unique universe onto its own. And then on top of that, we have hundreds of millions of motions and briefs and judicial rulings. And then from there, we're able to synthesize information out, like practical information on how the particular judge that you're appearing before, how they rule on similar cases, what their motion grant rates are, to how a particular law firm really, what does their performance look like across the nation? So we're now at 45 states, 2,600 counties, which is over 3,000 courts. And this is the data set that we have. Just think of it as the entire United States court system, which is so much larger than simply Court of Appeals, because every case starts in trial court and 99.7% of cases don't make it to trial. They live in that state trial court system and they die there. And it's rare, actually, to make it all the way to trial and then to Court of Appeals, which is the subset of data that lawyers historically used for research.
So how does all that data help power these new AI tools you've launched?
So think about it as some of the work that we have watched our customers and our litigators do more manually on our system. So let's take motion drafting, for example. We've always been heavily utilized for motion drafting because we have hundreds of millions of examples of motions on before a particular judge, on a particular cause of action with very similar case facts. But historically, lawyers were pulling those more manually and working with that to create to use as an outline and to create a motion. What they can do now on Trellis is by practice area, by particular cause of action, they can draft MSJ arguments. And the way that we do that is we have the complaint, because of course we have everything that's filed in the state trial court system. We extract out all the important facts. We search across our entire database of similar cases to find cases with the most similar facts. We then look at MSJ arguments in those cases and MSJ arguments that have actually won. We take argument and case law that's able to use to generate the argument, and then we take the facts of the attorney's particular case that they're working on and apply the facts of their case to this winning argument and law and provide them with the output of these MSJ arguments, which are absolutely incredible and work to create such a strong starting point. And it's not just sort of random Court of Appeals text generated, but it is able to use the hundreds of millions of documents that attorneys have filed and where they've actually won. And it's able to use that case law and those arguments to create this draft output for the litigators.
So the AI is getting trained against the arguments that have worked, that have won, the cases that have worked, that have won in other cases, and applying it to your factual situation.
You said it even better than I did.
Well, just try to summarize. And you mentioned motions for summary judgment. It's also motions to dismiss as well, right?
That's correct. And we're obviously going to continue building on from there. Think of this as a starting point with quite a bit to tackle, but we're trying to go after the most common or most difficult, most time-consuming motions as a starting place.
Right. And so something else that these AI tools let a litigator do is to create a kind of an assessment of the case that you have at hand, right? Can you explain that?
Absolutely. And this is one of the features that our customers are really excited about. So what we do here is we allow from just the start of a case when you have the complaint. And what we do is we use all of our data, similar cases, similar outcomes, what verdicts look like, what juries look like. And what we do is a full case assessment based on that. So what are some of the tasks that attorneys need to do right away? Creating timelines, creating chronologies, identifying witnesses to depose, identifying witnesses that you need to find and may have valuable information that you'll need to notice depositions. So a lot of really practical, tactical information, but then mixed with a high level about the case. What are the legal issues in this case? What are the elements that need to be proven from a very start? How is plaintiff attempting to prove those as a starting place? How will they need to continue in order to win? What are common defenses that have been really successful against these arguments in cases with similar facts? So think of it as the very high level. What does a jury pool look like? What do recent verdicts look like for similar cases? So that you can see the case from a big picture from the very start. What do I need to prove and what of other cases? What has developed in those cases that could be helpful for me from a starting place? Then down to the tactical. Given these facts, given these causes of action, what are motions that you should consider? What are the next steps that you need to do? What should you talk to the client about? So we're trying to really give a full case assessment and evaluation of a case from the very start, which can be used in so many different ways. One of which is obviously when you're just starting a case to be able to pull it all together, or when you want to communicate that to the client and you want to pull some of this information together for the client, or when you're having new folks, new colleagues come and join and they need to ramp up quickly on the case and understand everything. But it's also helpful for others when they're thinking about evaluating a case in general, for, whether to take certain cases or what are going to be, the obstacles in a particular case and knowing those quickly up front. And so we really try and make this incredible thorough evaluation that gives both strategic and tactical information based on similar cases.
Yeah, it so it really becomes like a playbook for the case. This is a podcast, but I would encourage listeners or watchers even to go to your website. I wrote a blog post about this. It's really quite cool. I have to say. You said that your customers find this as one of the most interesting or one of the most intriguing features. I also thought it was really cool, and it's a highly detailed outline of the case, and then, as I understand it, as the case progresses, you can continue to update this with additional documents and additional information, and continue to refine the entire case assessment as you go forward, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I would
Yeah.
say for that, one of the things that we've worked with some of our customers, we how do we get attorneys the right information at the right time? And what we're doing with some of our law firms is creating workflows where they get the attorneys sometimes with a dinger system. It doesn't matter which dinger system you use or which court alerting service you use, but being able to have the case assessment right there with the new case that you're identifying, or giving the attorneys this information directly in their inbox when the case gets assigned to them without them even having to go on to Trellis and to request it. But we work with firms to do that and create those automated workflows as well.
So we've been talking about these kind of case level tools. In addition, this rollout of Trellis AI includes document specific, or I think as you've called them, on document tools when we've talked about it before. Can you describe what those kinds of tools are?
Absolutely. So if you think about the vast database that Trellis has, we obviously have these hundreds of millions of motions and complaints and filings. And we're able to do a variety of tasks on all of our documents. So if you need to create a timeline off of multiple documents, all part of a case, deposition information, what have you, create timelines from there. If you need, obviously, to summarize or extract information, to extract the case law that's been cited to you so that you can then research that. There's so many different tools that you can use. You can analyze arguments. What are the main arguments that they're making? What are they using to support that? What are the facts they're supporting that with? All the way to what are affirmative and other defenses that could be used based on what we've seen in the millions of other cases that have faced similar issues. So there are a lot of different document tools. But those are some of the highlights.
Yeah, but I mean, it's again to go a little deeper into that. I mean, you can take a complaint tool, you can take a complaint and analyze the complaint, and it's going to tell you not just the causes of action, not just what's in the complaint, but what's needed to kind of prove the allegations of the complaint, and what facts what facts are alleged in the complaint, and maybe strengths and weaknesses of the facts as they're alleged. So it really goes beyond simply. This is not just a summary. In other words,
Correct.
This is a real kind of analysis of a document.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
That's absolutely true. Yep.
Yeah, and the documents that you can apply these tools to really can be any document. They don't have to be something that was already on Trellis came out of a docket on Trellis. If a lawyer wants to upload a document or something else, they can do that as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we obviously, because of our database, have hundreds of millions of documents. So you may not even need to upload yours. But the good news is that you can upload any document and we can perform the same tools that we do on a document that you've uploaded. So really trying to make this great if the data is already on Trellis. But if it's not, don't worry. All of our same document tools can work on any document that you upload.
Right. Now, I believe it's still the case. When we talked last about this product, this was available for California cases. The case assessment tools are available for California at this point, right? And then will be expanded?
Case assessment is actually available across the nation for any case. The summary judgment motion drafting is currently California.
Okay, and you plan to expand that at some point into other states?
Absolutely. We're actively working on expanding right now.
Yeah. What else would you like listeners to know about Trellis AI that we haven't talked about?
What I would say is one of the things, obviously our data and the foundation really truly differentiates us. But another thing that really differentiates us is that we aren't a chat platform as many of the tools that are out there are. We really looked at it very differently. And we said, well, why are attorneys chatting? What are they trying to accomplish? And generally they're trying to accomplish some sort of work product. They have to then take whatever is in the chat and turn that into a memo they feel comfortable comfortable with or turn it into a motion. What we wanted to say was, let's not assign the attorneys homework. Let's create the draft work product for them. So we are one-click solutions. Any drafting, any generative capabilities, you click basically the task, the outcome, what you are trying to create. And from there, we create it for you. You don't have to be a prompt engineer. We've worked incredibly hard, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of our attorney analysts reviewing with accuracy and tweaking and working with our engineers. And so we wanted to take that work, the work of trying to make sure you have the absolute best prompt, leave that to us. Trying to make sure that the results are accurate, leave that to us. We've done a lot of testing. You click a button and create the draft work product that you want to work with, and you're off to the races from there.
Yeah, so instead of having to formulate a prompt and then continue to come up with follow-up prompts to try and get it to where you want it to be, you click a button and it does what you want.
That is correct. And with many of those follow-up prompts that you would need to do to try to get to where you are, we've done a lot of that work on the back end. So we have multiple chains going on. There's a lot of work that goes into what's the final outcome that the attorneys see. And so we want to make it where it's less up to how great a prompter you might be and more up to how do we as a company deliver the best results in the most simple way to our users.
Yep. What's the best way for users to find out more about Trellis AI?
Absolutely. You can go on to trellis.law and request info, book a demo. We are here to help. You can also reach out directly to me. I'm on LinkedIn, Nicole_A_Clark. Or you can reach out to sales@trellis.law.
Well, congratulations on this launch. As I mentioned, I've seen a demo of it. I've written about it on my blog, and I think it's really, really cool what you've got here. So congratulations, and thanks for coming on the show today to talk about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Bob.